Tomorrow is D-Day. The U.S. has to leave Afghanistan. They're trying to evacuate as many people as they can today ahead of tomorrow. And it doesn't help that ISIS-K is busy launching attacks in the process.
Well, it certainly doesn't. And the one thing that Biden had assured everyone was that the U.S. had taken care of terrorism. They couldn't take care of the Taliban, but they could take care of terrorism. And you've got the ISIS-K now showing that some money. And apparently these missiles that were coming into Kabul airport were intercepted by anti-missile technology that the U.S. has that's very mobile. But that doesn't still ignore the fact that it's a mess.
What's the affiliation of ISIS-K with the Taliban? And is the Taliban helping the U.S. fight back?
Well, yes, you've got a sort of cooperation of convenience right now because there's a mutual interest in isolating the Islamic State. It's a threat to the Taliban, and it's seen that way. But this is part of a larger problem that the U.S. has created largely for itself by trying to engage in nation building in a country that just simply wasn't ready for it. This is a turning point in U.S. foreign policy. So well, we're going to have to take some time to see what political costs are incurred by Biden. But I do think it's right for the U.S. to stop thinking it can build nations which are very, very different than its own.
There's no doubt that the U.S. won't get to evacuate all Americans and their allies who want to leave by tomorrow. But there's an expectation, even from the U.S. government, that even post tomorrow's deadline, once the U.S. is gone, the Taliban will continue to allow the safe passage of those that want to leave. But will they?
Well, we'll see, but they've given assurances to 110 nations, and it certainly is the case that they don't want to be isolated as they were in the 90s. Don't forget, there's a whole new generation of Taliban, not just a whole new generation of men and women, and particularly women who have been liberated during the course of the occupation or nation-building experiment. My complaint with the U.S. was that it put too much reliance, as it always does, on the military and built up the Afghan army of 300,000 to no what end? Nothing. They folded in a nanosecond. So it was time to sort of take a fresh look at the problem, but the way that they've disengaged is certainly complicated. But I think the Taliban wants to be helpful in getting those who want it and have legitimate reason carry passports, foreign passports, and they've been talking to all the other countries about that.
When can we expect the new administration to be set up, and how is Afghan going to survive without the billions of dollars in foreign aid that have constantly been poured in by the Western donors?
Well, the Taliban have been quite successful at surviving for the last 20 years in Pakistan, and with taxation of routes through northern Afghanistan, which they've continued to control to some extent, and with the opium trade and various other means of finances, I don't think that that's going to be so much of a problem. There's an immediate humanitarian crisis, which is very real, and there is the question of how they're going to treat women and be open to engaging the international community, and whether the international community will find it's in their interest to engage. I don't think that anything would be gained by the U.S. applying sanctions right now. There's got to be a period of wait and see. But for now, as you suggest, getting those foreigners out and those who collaborated with the foreign powers out safely is the real challenge. The U.S. has already evacuated 110,000 people, a small proportion of which are Americans. So it's a turning point, but we won't know the facts until they unfold a bit more.
Yeah. What's your sense so far on how governments are responding to the Taliban? Some are saying, well, let's not judge them just yet. They're making these promises. Action will speak louder than words. But it really feels like a lot of governments are willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, that's certainly true, and it makes sense after 20 years. The Taliban was isolated only had 3 embassies, UAE, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia back in the 1990s. Everyone sort of ostracized them. This time around, I think there is a recognition of the need to engage and to temporize and to test the waters. People are pretty clear-eyed. It's a complicated country that is going to have multiple forces at work. And as I say, 25 years is the average age of the Afghan people, and the U.S. Threw out the Taliban 20 years ago. So most of those who are grown up in Afghanistan know a very different Afghanistan than what was prevailing in the 1990s.